I dyed my hair red and you can barely tell. Because I have so much natural red undertone in my hair. I mean, you can see it here, obviously, because it's still on my scalp a little. But I feel like I put so much up here. And, like, you can see it more here. But I even, like, I went through and, like, did all that. And you can barely see it. But you can definitely see it down here. Down in the ends. But maybe I just need to, like, reapply up in here. Because it looks like I haloed it. Which I most certainly did not halo it, but whatever, I guess. Welcome back to Every Disney Movie Ever. My name is Jess and I'm watching Every Disney Movie Ever. Today I'm going to talk about Cowbells. Cowbells is a 2006 Disney Channel original movie. It's about two spoiled sisters who have to recognize their privilege when they come face to face with the reality of having to save their dad's dairy factory. It is directed by Francine McDougall, cinematography by Tony Westman, editing by Terry Blythe, music by Kenneth Burgomaster, and it's written by Stu Krieger and Matt Dearborn. Film stars Michalka as Taylor, AJ Michalka as Courtney, and Jack Coleman as Reed. This was somewhat inspired by The Simple Life, starring Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie, and it was pretty well received. It was considered good for family movie night, and that it had a really good lesson. I don't really have a standout shot. Maybe the shot of Taylor and Jackson in the field that was like actually on location on a farm, and a very beautiful wide shot, but otherwise the cinematography for this, I feel like, did struggle a little bit because they dealt so much with natural light. It was very obvious they were shooting on location in a lot of areas with the ADR to cover up the outside noises that were picked up, I'm sure. And just with the harsh lighting of sunlight and all that kind of stuff, they didn't use a lot of bounce boards and diffusion to try and, you know, not make it such harsh lighting. So it was very obvious that it was shot outside, which isn't a bad thing by any means, but I feel like the lighting wasn't as artistic as a dcom has proven it can be, because they shot outside and didn't really finagle with any kind of like diffusion or bounce boards. Well, not that I'm sure they used diffusion and bounce boards in places, but there were just some shots that it was just like harsh sun on one side of the face and not on the other, which is totally fine. But again, I feel isn't as qualified as some of the other decoms have been. Only one Allie and AJ song in this movie. I think that's a crime. Honestly, I think they could have blanketed this movie with Allie and AJ songs. I think that would have been really fun. But I also get it. So, fine, I guess. The standout plot for me is the main plot. The girls growing up and saving their dad's dairy factory. That, by far and away, is the best plot of the movie. The plots or storylines that I didn't love at all were the love stories. I think Taylor and Jackson is a bit more motivated because Jackson kind of is helping Taylor grow. Philippe and Courtney, that felt like, you know, if Taylor gets a boy, Courtney has to have a boy. Really, I feel like they're both unnecessary. I get that Taylor has to have a connection to be getting like the milk or whatever, so I kind of, there's a little bit more motivation for Taylor and Jackson's like friendship, love story, whatever. But with that, I feel like there were such extremes, especially in the love story side of things, that it made it cringy and brought the quality of the movie down, because Taylor's struggle with trying to help save this factory long before her sister comes to like facing the reality that everything's not about her or whatever is so good, and Allie does do a really great job at that, I feel like. But the just the extreme. So how do I word this? It's just like everything has this like super extreme, like, oh my gosh, fight or emotion or whatever, and then it's immediately the opposite. Like there's no sitting with that. There's no like progression. It's just immediately a payoff or resolution, which isn't horrible because you do want resolutions for these things, but it was just not done well. So for example, the first one is Jackson has never met Taylor in his life, and he's just like, she's a snob, she's a stuck-up bee, like, whatever. And she walks up to, like, she's coming to learn how to drive a stick, and he's just so mean to her. And I get it, like, he's, you know, she gets everything she wants, blah, 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 but you don't have to be a dick about it. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be so mean, and he's outright mean to her so awfully. And then the next time he sees her, he's, like, excited and getting ready to see her, and it's like, where did this come from? You just hated her, like, with every part of your being without ever meeting her, and then she showed one little bit of interest in the pregnant cow, which, who would... Of course she's showing interest in the pregnant cow, that's cool, like, I don't... But he flipped so fast and so easy, there was no, like, progression there. It was just, like, he was excited she was coming over and was, like, treating it like a date almost. And it's like, where did that come from? I don't understand. And then, like, when she was like, I'm worried about Martha or whatever, and he's like, you are? What the? Like, oh my gosh. And then on another side of it, an extreme that has to do with the main plot, is the scene between Allie and AJ, Taylor and Courtney, when Taylor has spent Courtney's cotillion money to help save the factory, and Courtney is full tilt, like, never speak to me again. That scene is so good and so tense. Amazing. And Courtney flies to her best friend's house, and she walks in, and she's not heated anymore. She's just like, oh, hey. Oh, it's fine that you're wearing that, whatever. And then her friend is like, well, of course it's, like, competing with you. And just miraculously, the girl that has been so stubborn about being, like, selfish and everything this whole movie, and just told her sister she never wants to see her again, never wants to speak to her again, like, forget I exist, XYZ, this, that, and the other thing. Why should I care about the factory? I'm quitting, blah, blah, blah. Just immediately goes to her friend's house, and there's no, like, real exchange where her friend gives you a hard truth. It's a very, like, normal conversation, and she's like, oh, am I really that bad? Instead of her friend being like, why are you being such a... about everything, and her being like, why are you talking to me like this? Like, you sound just like my sister, and blah, like, there should be some pushback if she was just that adamant about it, but it's just, like, immediate. She's that adamant about it. It's such an amazing scene between Allie and AJ, and then she immediately goes to her friend's house, and her friend is like, well, it's kind of hard to compete with you. She's like, it's not a competition. She's like, well, yeah, it is. You aren't me, blah, blah, blah. She's like, wow, am I really that bad? And she's like, well, yeah, kind of. It's like, no, it should have been harder to get that through her head if you're going to make her that adamant about it, if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm explaining this well enough, and I feel like I'm taking a while to explain it. My point is, they were extremely on one end of the spectrum, and it took nothing to get them to the other side of the spectrum. Or at least, in my opinion, they didn't show or have enough to get her believably to the other side of the spectrum without it being like, oh yeah, okay, it's just a movie, they're trying to get there. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm explaining it well. Whatever. There are amazing pieces of this. I think the entire storyline, I think Taylor, like, really struggling with giving Courtney's cotillion money is so good. It's a beautiful nugget of this film, because I can't imagine what Taylor was going through and trying to save her dad's dairy factory, but also knows she's taking this money from something her sister so desperately wants to do and have. So, like, I totally loved that inner turmoil that you could see in her, and see, you know, mostly, like, I hate to say this, but I feel like Courtney got done dirty in this movie, because she flips her script so late into it that, like, the movie feels very much about Taylor, because she's the one that, like, is feeling the remorse almost immediately and wants to do something to help the factory and this, that. And she's the older one, so it makes sense. And it makes sense that they would give her, story-wise, a sister that takes longer and give her that turmoil to deal with on top of trying to save the factory and the stress and all that kind of, and a boy and whatever. So it feels very much that Taylor's the main character, even though the movie is supposed to be like an Allie and AJ movie. So I wish... maybe, I don't know. It's good. It has such good little bones and nuggets, and it's entertaining for sure to watch. And the plot is interesting. but there's parts of it that are just, oh, that's a little cringe, or oh, I wish they flushed that out a bit, or this, that, and the other thing. The last thing I have, writing-wise, is the dad showing up at the factory at the end was so anticlimactic for me. I was expecting it to be a huge thing that he comes back and he sees his girls saved the factory. Like, I thought it was going to be like, he comes rushing back and he's like, oh my gosh, I heard all this stuff, and like, the girls are like, we saved it, now you're back, can we continue saving it, or whatever else, or they catch Bob and they get the money back, or whatever. But this, it was very much, he comes and he helps finish saving the factory, which is fine, it's his factory, shows how good of a guy he is, and it's great, but it was anticlimactic for me, because he just like walks in with a bunch of people from the cotillion, and it's like, well, how the hell did you get here? Like, you were just in the most remote part of the world, where the heck were you? Like, what the heck is going on? So that was anticlimactic for me, and I was kind of disappointed. I wish it had been different, but overall, it was touching. Standout performance or scene for me is definitely, I've already touched on it, but the scene between Taylor and Courtney, where they're arguing, and Courtney is like quitting the dairy, and like that's it. That's their final like big fight. I think that scene really stands out. I think Allie and AJ did a really fantastic job in that scene. I do think Allie shines in this movie a bit more than AJ, solely because she had a lot more activity and growth over the course of the film than Courtney did. So AJ, while excellent at being like the spoiled, selfish, girl, didn't have as much time to show any kind of inner turmoil or any kind of like switch to whatever. It was just like she was majority of the film a selfish brat, for lack of a better word, and then like gets flipped by her friend almost immediately, and then is like super sweet and nice and has had an awakening or whatever. And she does that fine as well, but we don't get to see any of AJ's like true acting chops with like real like struggling internally doing something that is so difficult or anything like that. So I do think Allie shines a bit more in this movie in acting regard. I feel like they both did a really great job though, especially in that one scene I mentioned. My favorite part of this definitely has to be, I don't know. I probably have a couple favorite moments, but one of them is for sure Taylor's like trying to change scene where she talks to all the workers and they're all kind of being mad and like calling her and mean, calling her a spoiled brat, saying what can she do to help the factory, blah blah blah. And she is like, I think I might be able to get the money to help us get through the week, whatever. And they're like, oh, how are you going to do that, blah blah blah. They're all being really nasty, and she goes, well, maybe that's why I'm trying to change. And they all are like, okay. Like, some of them laugh at her, some of them think she's trying to be genuine. I really love that scene because I think it does show that she's trying to help and change, because she does then follow through and help. My least favorite part is any of the love story scenes. I do have scenes of Taylor and Jackson that I don't hate, but most of them are so unnecessary. Like, I don't, they could have had more to the actual plot and flushed that out more in a lot better of a way than some of the love story scenes we got. I would recommend for one watch for sure. I agree with the critics that it's a great family movie night and a good lesson. And then I would say, I wouldn't say no if someone wanted to watch this with me. So I would technically watch it again, but I don't know if I'd just like be like, I feel like watching cowbells. You know what I mean? Like, maybe. I don't, and who knows? And then specific moments that stand out, I've pretty much already talked about them. Taylor giving her speech, Taylor giving the check to Marvin, I don't know, the guy that does payroll at the factory. Because you can just see how she feels like she's saving the factory, but is so guilty because it's her sister's cotillion money. And then the big blowout between Allie and AJ is also so good. $25,000 for a cotillion or party or whatever is insane. That's, especially for like a cotillion. Like, I don't know, man. That's just a lot of money. That's just cringe that he just can be like, yeah, $25,000 for a cotillion, no problem. So insane. I didn't love AJ's character in this because of how long she was selfish. I totally believe that they were like, that spoiled and that selfish. I do think that can exist. But I think it took too long for her to come, like, crashing down to reality, but maybe not, you know, I have no idea. I don't really have experience with people like that. So I didn't love her character. I was very like, oh my gosh, just like, why don't you care about these other people? Your sister is asking you to look and pay attention and care about them. And I get like not wanting to give up your cotillion because it's like your sister had one and it's very important to her. You know, she's 14. Those are the things that you care about. It feels like the end of the world because that's your world. You know, you're not out in the real world. And I want kids to be kids for as long as they can, obviously. But I also wanted her to be kind and generous and all that kind of stuff, you know? So, I don't know. And also the other girls are so bad. Oof. And then what else? There was right when they get to the dairy factory, they got there in the convertible, and it is obviously raining outside, and they have the top down, which I thought was funny. And then, personally, if I had been them, I would have been so embarrassed about how bad I was at that job, but obviously a completely different person, completely different scenario, completely different upbringing, completely different everything. So I just would have felt mad embarrassed, because I hate getting in trouble, I hate getting any kind of reprimand, anything. So, yeah. Overall, I would say this is a very, like, sweet, touching watch to see them go through this and try and save the factory and care and stuff like that. So I would definitely say, yeah, it's good. I like it. I think it's decent. My final rating is 5 because, you know, like, it's good, but it's not great. So I'm right in the middle of the road about it, probably. So 5 cows out of 10. Our total movie count is. Our parent death toll is. Cry count is still the same. If you want to keep up with what movie I'm watching when, follow me on Instagram or Twitter. You'll find out what movie I'm watching when. I put out videos every Monday and Friday and sometimes Wednesday. Join Patreon. I put out a, wait. Did I already do? If you want to keep, yeah, join Patreon. I'm a mess this morning. Join Patreon at a tier starting at just $1. You get every video a week early. You get a coupon code for merch. Buy merch. You can't buy this one anymore because it was limited edition for 500. But there's plenty of others. Until next time, comment, like, subscribe, but I'm not in charge of your life. You are, so do you. And don't be Bob. Embezzling little conniving lizard slimy snake. Snakes aren't slimy. Snakey snakes aren't slimy.